Everyone, and welcome to the Rethinking Church Voter Education Symposium. I'm so excited to have you all with us today as we rethink voting. So we're just going to jump right into it because we do have a full day ahead of us. And if you can't session, totally understand. Don't worry about it. Pop in, get the information that you need when you have the opportunity. And as you guys know, we will have the videos available for playback. And since we're not doing 60 speakers this time, it won't take quite as long, that I can guarantee you. So I would like to welcome you all to our presentation. For those of you who are new to the event, Rethinking Church is a social impact organization that was created out of the desire for a lot of churches that I've done work with to rethink how they're actually approaching ministry and how they're having an impact in their community. And once COVID hit, it was very necessary for many of those churches to rethink how they engage with their congregations as well as their communities. So, no longer could we have the programs, could we do business as usual. We had to rethink this entire thing. And so one of my good friends, Quinta Ellis Parmalee, and I got together and hosted the Rethinking Church Virtual Summit in July. And from that, we identified 10 issues that we wanted to deal with this coming year. And so each of those issues have groups that are working on how do we create tools, resources, and models that churches and church communities can utilize to have an impact in their community. And voter education was one of those issues. I made a post joking on my Facebook a few months ago about hosting something like this in October. And people were like, oh, no, you need to do it before then. And so I just set the date, and here we are. We have some great presenters who are going to be with us today. So we're going to go through a quick schedule for today just to let you guys know what's on tap and what you can look forward to. So at 11:15, we have attorney Richard Rice, who's going to be presenting Protect the Vote, Steps to Ensure the Voting Process is Protected, because I do know that that is a concern that some people have, ensuring that, if you're at the polls and something happens, then what do you do? Who do you call? And there are resources that have been developed and are still being developed that will allow you to ensure that the vote is protected. And I'm sure some people are going to have questions about mail-in ballots. Is it safe? Is it not safe? So Attorney Richard Rice is going to be online to have that discussion with you guys this morning. We also have State Representative from Tennessee, Reverend Dr. Harold Love, who some of you may remember from the Rethinking Church Summit, who's going to be talking about lobbying. So a lot of people think that lobbying is only for corporations or big donors, but lobbying is actually when you get a group of people together and you go and present your position on different issues. And I think that that's an area that a lot of churches don't take advantage of. How often do we get our members together and go to lobby our state representatives, or go lobby our House representatives, or even go lobby your city council? What is your position on an issue? How do you want them to vote, and why should they listen to you? So that's really the essence of lobbying. And as a state representative, he's going to talk to you about why that's important and the impact that you're able to have if you are interested in that type of activism. And then at 11:15, we have Nathan Willingham, who is an adjunct professor of political science, and he's going to be talking about the presidential process. This is so important because a lot of people don't understand exactly how presidents are elected and what is the process of the Electoral College. So some people say, oh, my vote doesn't matter because I'm not in, one of the battleground states, but every vote matters. And he's going to explain how the presidential process works and how presidents are actually elected. I know for some people that seems like really basic civics information, but based on some posts that I've seen, you would be surprised at how many people don't know. And then at 12:15, we have Mrs. Jackie DuPont Walker. Every Vote Counts. The AME Church's Social Action Committee has put together a dynamic guide for voter engagement. And she's going to be sharing some information from that guide and also provide you with access to the toolkit. So if you want to use it for your Get Out the Vote campaign, then she's going to make that available to you guys. So we're really excited to have her. because one of the issues that we run into are resistance voters. Like, so what do you say when people say, oh, you know, I don't want to vote, or my vote doesn't matter? Again, every vote matters in this election. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to engage voters. And then we have Douglas Alexander Wilson. Doug Wilson has worked at pretty much every level of campaigns, from working for the state party to working for individual candidates to being a consultant. I think this morning, right now, he's doing a training for the Congressional Black Caucus, and then he's going to hop on with us. But he's going to talk about money and politics. So, you know, and you guys know me, a lot of times candidates don't really engage in our communities because we don't have any skin in the game. We haven't contributed to any campaigns. We're not financial contributors. And that's where they go. They're looking for donors. So how can you get in the game financially to invest in candidates that you actually believe in to help them win? So Doug is going to be talking about that, and there's so much more that goes into it. So if you have questions about campaign finance and how you can become a bundler, like remember that word, a bundler. So you don't have to have like $10,000, but you can bundle $10,000 by bringing groups of people together to make those donations. So Doug is going to be talking to you about that and how we can get in the game financially to have an impact on elections. And then we have Dr. Sekou Franklin, who's also a political science professor, who's going to be talking about the Voting Rights Act, what you need to know and why you should care. The Voting Rights Act was gutted a few years ago, and I don't have the date in front of me, but he's going to talk about like where is it right now and what do we need to do so that we're putting that lobbying piece together to ensure that we have those voter rights protections. So you definitely want to participate in this conversation if you're interested in the Voting Rights Act and what you can do to help get it strengthened. And then at 1:15, we have Dr. John Holder, who's going to be talking about the 3 branches of government, understanding the roles of each branch. So, you know, sometimes, you know, I see people make posts and they're trying to hold the president accountable for things that the Senate is responsible for, or they're trying to hold the Senate responsible for things that the House of Representatives is responsible for, or not understanding like why some things go to the Supreme Court. And that's also important on the state level. So how do the 3 branches of government work together, and how do the whole checks and balances work? And so that's been a little dysfunctional lately with our current administration, but they're actually supposed to work together to hold each other accountable. So we have the judicial, the executive, and the legislative branch. And many of us learned about this in high school, but now that it needs to be applied to our current administration, you know, we kind of need a refresher lesson on how do these 3 branches of government work together and why they're so important. And then we have Pat Hunter, who's going to be giving us some innovative strategies to increase voter turnout. So if you know Pat Hunter, if you followed her on Facebook at all, you know she's very creative. She's always out in the community being active. And so she's going to give us some strategies on how can we increase voter turnout by getting out into the community. And then last but definitely not least, we have Kadita Kenner, who's going to be talking about courts matter. And so again, if you follow her on Facebook, you'll see she's been arrested a couple of times for doing some sit-ins and for doing some protesting, because she recognizes, and the organization that she works with recognizes the importance of courts in our electoral process. So understanding like how judicial appointments are made and how that is impacted by who you vote for. So sometimes like when we're voting, we don't think about, you're not just voting for the president, but you're voting for an administration. You're voting for the type of people that they're going to recommend for appointments in their administration, but that also includes judicial appointments. So you definitely want to participate in this session so that you can ask questions and get a bigger understanding, because again, in 2016, this was an issue that we didn't discuss a lot. However, it was an issue that allowed one party to support a candidate because of the judicial appointments. So good morning again to everyone. I see we have more people coming in. So happy to see you guys. So at 2 o'clock, we're going to have our closing charge. And so that's when we're going to kind of wrap it all up. And we have Quincy Howard from the, I don't remember the name of the organization, but it is a Catholic organization that does like social justice work. And she has another tool that she's going to be providing for us. And she's going to do a short presentation on that tool, and it is around lobbying and the issues that we'll be talking about today. So that's going to be a great way for us to just wrap up the day. So one of the great features, so if you guys are like in the session already, you will see that you have the ability to network with each other. So I see you guys are already, chatting in the event portion. You can also go over to the stage and you can do some chatting with each other. You will see at the top that there is a little tab that says people. So you can click on people and you can see all of the people who are registered for the event. So if you want to send a private message to someone who's registered for the event, then just click on their name. And then you can start typing and you can send them a message. So this is great if there's a presenter that you want to connect with offline, then come over to the people tab, click on their name, and then send them a message. During our networking time, you'll see on the left of your screen that there's a little networking icon. And we have like a little 15-minute break in between each of the sessions just to give you time to get some water, use the bathroom if you need to, but you can also use this time for networking. So if you want to invite someone to a video call, you can click on video call and then you can connect with them on video and have like a short conversation with them. So some people have asked like why I chose this platform, why do we use this over Zoom? And this is one of the features that I think is really beneficial because it allows you to not only build relationship with the presenters, but also to build relationship with each other. From the virtual summit, I've received so many messages from people that were able to make connections with people who are doing the work or people who are having similar experiences so that they can collaborate on issues. So make sure that you take advantage of that people option. And I always tell people, don't abuse it. So, don't go and, send people spammy messages. So if you're going to like message someone, like make sure that it's, a genuine connection that you're trying to make. So hopefully that helps and definitely take advantage. Oh, and then at the very top, you will see a little mailbox. So if someone has sent you a mail, well, a little envelope icon. So you'll see that little icon. So if it's lit up, then that'll let you know that you have a message. So you can click on it and then you can go and check your message and see who has actually sent you messages. During the presentations today, you can type in the chat box as the presenters are presenting. So if they ask for, you to give them their email address because they're going to send you information, then you can go ahead and put that information in there. And then we are going to provide them with a transcript of the chat. So no one else is going to get a copy of that transcript except the presenters. So it is safe for you to put your email address in the chat feature during the session. So again, you'll see that there's an event chat and then there's a stage chat, which is if you want to chat just about this session. And then when you go into your individual sessions, then there will be a session button. So that will allow you to chat with the people who are in that session. So next housekeeping thing, when the sessions are live. So some people are just like, okay, so how do I know where to go? So when the sessions are live, you're going to come over and you're going to click on the sessions. And it's not live now because we don't have the session. So you see the stage is live right now. So when the sessions are live, that portion will be illuminated. And then you'll be able to go in, see the 3 sessions that we're hosting during that time, and then click on the one that you want to go into. And then it will look very similar to what you see right now. And then you'll be able to see the presenter as well as the presentation. So I hope that helps to get you guys going for the day, to kind of understand how the platform works and that you can take advantage of this opportunity to network with each other as well as the presenters. So this morning, I'm going to be doing a short presentation on rethinking voting in a digital age. 2020 is going to be like no other election year. So in the past, we relied a lot on door to door, going to knock on people's doors. But with COVID, most people do not want you coming to their door. Most people don't want to go to anyone's door. So door to door is not going to be one of our most effective strategies. I know a lot of people are doing phone banking. Phone banking can be really good if you have good numbers, but we know that a lot of people have cell phone numbers, and for whatever reason, a lot of people change their cell phone numbers quite often. So phone banking is definitely good. However, it can also pose a disadvantage because a lot of people are not sharing their cell phone numbers, or you don't have good cell phone numbers. Mailers. Mailers was, a really strong strategy that candidates were using, and I think a lot of candidates are still using mailers. However, we know that a lot of people don't check their mail, and a lot of people look at the mailers and they throw them in the garbage. Mailers are beneficial to candidates because they do help you to build brand recognition. So even if someone doesn't read your mailer, they're probably going to look at the picture and look at the name, and so that name will come to remembrance. However, we do have to wonder, like, is that one of the most effective strategies? And then television ads. So television ads are really expensive. And then the reality is a lot of people are not watching network television. They're either watching cable, they're streaming services. So even if candidates are using television ads, there's a high probability that people are not seeing those ads. So what do? We have to understand that everything is digital right now. Everything is going digital. And so we have to make sure that we are playing in the spaces where people actually are. So when we look at voter engagement, most of the time, we do a great job with this whole voter registration thing. Like, we got to get people registered to vote. We got to register people to vote. But then we don't do a very good job of actually engaging them in the process. And so we want to make sure that as much as we're focusing on, are you registered to vote? Have you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote at your current address? Because that is very important. Are you registered to vote at your current address? That we are also making sure that people are engaged in the voting process. So what does that look like? Understanding who needs to vote. So one of my pet peeves is the fact that we focus on making sure that the people who vote every cycle are going out to vote. So I know that this conference is usually comprised mostly of church people. So I'm going to speak to my church people right now. You getting your congregation to get out and vote is really good, but that's just the beginning. We have to make sure that the people who don't normally vote are the ones that we are getting out to vote. So yes, your congregation going out to vote, 100% of my congregation is voting. That's wonderful. Get those people now to go and find the people in your community who don't normally vote and get them to vote. If we're able to increase voter turnout by 5, 10, or even 15%, then we can have an impact in elections. And this is evident if you guys look at the statistics from St. Louis. Before the Michael Brown incident, St. Louis had a really low voter turnout rate. I think it was less than 20%. Because of all the protests and everything that was happening in that area, they have been increasing their voter turnout percentages because more people who did not normally vote started to vote. And what has that changed? I think they got a new prosecutor for the city. They also were able to just elect, I think, Corey Brown, who's going to the House of Representatives, by getting people who don't typically participate in the process to go and vote. That changes the representation that you're able to have. So who needs to vote? The people who don't normally vote. So when you're doing your souls to the polls or whatever, get out the vote strategies that you're utilizing, make sure that you are focusing on people who don't normally vote. So getting your congregation active in connecting with people who don't normally vote. I can't say that enough. So the thing that we need to focus on when we're targeting these people is asking how would they vote, getting a vote plan together. And there are some resources that are going to be shared with you guys later today about vote plans and how that actually works. But it's important not only to ask people, are you going to vote, but to also ask, when are you going to vote? How are you going to vote? Are you planning to mail in your ballot? As we know, with all the craziness that's going on with the Postal Service, some people are resistant to mail in ballots. So what are some other options? Are you going to early vote? Are you going to vote on election day? If so, are you prepared to spend all day in case the lines are long? Because we know that some polling places have been closed. So having that type of conversation with people will cause them to start to think about, oh yeah, how am I going to vote? If I'm planning to vote early, like, when does early voting start? Can I vote anywhere? Because the rules are different for each state. So it's very important to understand, what the person's voting process is going to be, because then you're able to contact them. So if someone says, if you reach out to me and I'm like, yeah, I'm planning to early vote and I'm going to go next Tuesday, then next Tuesday evening you can reach out and say, hey LaKesha, I know you said you were planning to go vote today. Just wanted to check in and see, did you vote? How did everything go? Did you have any issues? And then if I didn't go vote, then it's like, oh, I didn't vote, like I'm going to go tomorrow. And then you can follow up with me the next day. And then that's how we help to increase voter engagement, which increases voter turnout. Does that make sense to everybody? If you have any questions, as we're going through this, feel free to post them in the chat, and then, we can definitely have some engagement. But our focus has to be on engaging people in the process who aren't typically engaged. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing this voter education today, because you're going to come against some resistance voters. You're going to come against people who are just like, oh, that doesn't matter, or, oh, why should I vote? And so we want to arm you with the information so that you can have intelligent conversations about it. Because I'm convinced some people don't have these conversations because they don't have the information. So we want to make sure that you have the information so that when people start saying, oh, my vote doesn't matter, you can start talking to them about Supreme Court appointments. You can start to talk to them about the branches of government and how they need to hold each other accountable. You can provide some additional information that will get them to see that they are important in this process. So that leads us to voter education. So somebody, and I can't remember who said this, but somebody said, today's voters are not interested in identity politics. They're interested in identity policies. So we have to ensure that as we're talking to people, I know some people are like, oh yeah, your ancestors, died for you to have the right to vote. That's just not compelling to some people. As true as it may be, and as much as that should tug at our heartstrings, for some people, like, that's just really not enough to get them to want to go and vote, because they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's like a really sad story. But when you start to tie the issues to their actual situation, they are more likely to want to go vote. So the question becomes, like, what are the issues that they care about? So right now, looking at the fact that a lot of parents are struggling with remote learning, tying that back to how does, the fact that our schools are not in session, or the schools that go into session are having to go into remote learning because of outbreaks, how is that connected to voting? If there are people who are food insecure, how does that tie into voting? If there are people who are worried about criminal justice issues or police brutality in their area, how is that tied to voting? So as you're talking to people, understanding what are the issues that they care about, and then how can you tie that to them voting? But just telling people, oh, you need to vote because your ancestors died for the right to vote, or, even as women say, do you know, women have to fight so hard for us to have the right to vote, and we owe it to our ancestors. Like, some people just don't feel like they owe their ancestors anything. Sad, but very true statement. So understanding the issues that people are concerned about and tying voting to those issues, connecting it to their everyday lives. Like, don't make it so abstract where it's just like, oh, you need to focus on, climate change. If that's not someone's issue, then you having this whole climate change conversation, and you can throw out all the statistics that you want, but if that's not their issue, they're not going to connect with it. Does that make sense to everybody? And does that help you to kind of see why in some instances we have not had an increase in voter turnout, even though we've been like passing out pamphlets and we've been telling people, don't forget it's election day and don't forget to go vote. We haven't done the work of actually engaging and educating people on why they should vote, how they should vote. And I think it was on MSNBC, and there was an athlete who was speaking, and I think some of you saw this segment because you were commenting on my Facebook post, and he was talking about some other professional athletes who had not voted because they didn't know what was going to happen when they went to actually go vote. And so that helped me to realize that sometimes that we're having these really high level conversations with people, we really need to bring it back to the basics. Some people who have never voted, like, they're actually afraid because they don't know what to do and they don't want to be embarrassed. So if someone says, oh yeah, I've never voted before, don't try to shame them and say, oh, you need to vote. Like, I was like, oh, what are you afraid? Why haven't you voted? Is there something that you're afraid of? Are you nervous? How do you feel, about the voting process? Like, start to ask those questions. It's almost like, as an activist in this voting space, it's almost like you're a sales consultant because you're trying to sell them on the concept of voting. So asking, what are your thoughts about voting? Why haven't you voted? Having conversations with people to get them to the point where you can start to do the engagement and the education. So again, some people don't know like what voting is all about, like what's going to happen when I get there. Who do I know? Who do I select? So helping people to understand like how do you identify the people who are going to be on the ballot, like printing off sample ballots to help people to see who they're voting for. So that's really, really important. Then we get into voter empowerment. So we want to empower people to help us do this work. So often people are like, oh, I voted. And I'm like, that's great. That's great that you voted. Now, can you help us get 5 or 10 other people to go and vote? Because that's how, again, we increase voter turnout. It is a shame, as important as voting is in our country, that some areas are only seeing 30 or 40% voter turnout. So those are the areas that we want to work on having an impact in. So we can use social media to amplify the message. So one of the great things about social media is the fact that it does allow us to share the message. It does allow us to do the engagement and the education. But we have to be careful that we are verifying the information that we are sharing, because sometimes you'll see a headline and you're like, yeah, share. But you have to ask yourself, based on what our goal is, because our goal is to have an impact in this upcoming election, is the information that I'm sharing going to have a positive impact, or is it going to have a negative impact? Is this information going to increase voter turnout, or is it going to suppress voter turnout? And I understand like people have like their different opinions, and yes, you are entitled to your opinion, but don't say that you're trying to increase voter turnout when you're posting information that's counter to increasing voter turnout, when you're posting information that's going to suppress the vote. That's just the reality of it. Verify the information that you're posting, because as we know from 2016, there are not only international agents who are embedding information in our community, but then there are also other groups who are planting information into our community that is designed to suppress the vote. That's designed to make people be like, oh, my vote doesn't matter. Oh, my candidate's not going to win. And this isn't just about the presidential election, but this is about all of the elections. So make sure that if you're posting information, verify the information first. Look at the date on the article. Look at who wrote the article, because sometimes you're posting an opinion piece that's written by someone who does not support your position. So make sure that you're verifying the information that you're posting. It takes like a couple of minutes. Like, read the byline, read the date before you hit share. And then if you are posting something that's going to be controversial, make sure that you post some type of description with it. So had a conversation with a young man who did something similar, and the headline was extremely misleading. And my only suggestion was, like, if you're going to put this information out there, like, make sure that you also put, the factual representation, because we know most people don't read the article. Most people are not clicking on the link to actually read. They're reading the headline and making assumptions based on that. So even if you're going to post something controversial as a think piece, make sure that you're letting people know that that's what you're doing, and not just posting like a headline and then expecting that people are going to read, because we live in a society where people just don't read a lot. Protecting the vote. So again, we have an attorney who's coming on to talk about this, but making sure that, as we're empowering people, that we're also we're sharing resources to ensure that their vote is going to be protected. So if people are concerned about mailing in their ballot, then making sure that they know, like, what are some alternatives that they have, or if they are, planning to mail in their ballot, like making sure that they understand everything that they need to do to make sure that their vote will be counted. Don't realize that you might have to have your ballot notarized, or you might have to make a copy of your identification to send in. So helping people to understand, like, it's not just, oh, let me fill out the ballot and put it in an envelope to mail it. Like, what are all of the steps that you need to go through so that you can ensure that your vote is counted? So the president said that, he was looking at having police officers at the different polling places. That can be a form of intimidation for some people, especially people who might be voting for the first time, people who just had, like, their voting rights restored. They might be nervous about going to vote if they think that they're going to be police officers there for whatever reason. Like, that might just be a trigger or an obstacle for them. So making sure that you're talking to people, like, what might stop you from going to vote, so that you can maybe say, oh, well, I'll go with you and I'll sit in the car while you go in and vote. But making sure that people understand that, their vote is a right and that it should be protected, and if they have problems, we have resources that can help them. Does that make sense to everybody? As you guys know, like, I ask that all the time, because I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page with the information that we're sharing. And yes, you will definitely have this presentation and the video afterwards. So does anyone have any questions? Let us engage for just a moment about voting in a digital age. Just any questions that you guys have about this process, type them in the chat box, because we do thank you so much, because we do have a few minutes. Otherwise, you guys will be able to go and do some networking or take a quick break. But I definitely want to make sure that, like, all of your questions are answered. I can share with you one strategy that I shared with a couple of groups about this digital voting. Identify, maybe 10 people that you want to be in charge of, to make sure that they get out and vote. Again, making sure that they're people who don't traditionally vote. So it might be, some people who you've heard say, oh, my vote doesn't matter, or it might be some college students who are going to be away at school. Identify 10 people that you want to ensure they get out and vote, and contact those people and have these conversations with them. Create a vote plan with them. Ask, hey, how are you planning on voting? If they're in, a state where, they're not registered to vote, and they say, oh, I'm going to do an absentee ballot, and they don't know the process, take those 10 people and really, like, walk with them through the voting process. And for some of you, this might sound a lot like discipleship, because that's kind of what we're doing. We are going to we're going to make voting disciples. That's not really a thing, but we're going to walk with 10 people. And especially if those people live in states where their vote is especially important because of the Electoral College. So every cycle, the party that you're supporting will tell you which states are battleground states, which states we want to make sure that we get. So if you know some people in Pennsylvania, if you have family members in Pennsylvania, then you want to put those people on your list. If you have some family members in Florida that don't normally vote, you want to put those people on your list. You want to make sure that people in those battleground states are getting out to vote. This year, if you know some people in South Carolina, because we're trying to turn the Senate seat in South Carolina, then you want to make sure that you put those people on your list. So as you're contacting them, you want to make sure that you're talking to them about why their vote is especially important. If you have someone like in your local area and you know that you're trying to flip that Senate seat or that House seat, you have to help people to understand like how important their vote is to having an impact on the election. Because sometimes people are like, oh, it doesn't matter because of the electoral college. Well, if you're in one of those states that's going to decide the electoral college, then your vote is even more important. And that's not to say that every vote isn't important, but we do have to be honest and say that when it comes to the presidential election, some votes are a little bit more important because they do feed into the electoral college. However, when it comes to your down ballot races, and that's something that we really have to focus on, our House seats, understanding like who is your House representative, who is your state House representative, who is your state senator, who is your United States senator. So many people like who are holding Senator Harris to like this super high standard because of, what she did when she was an attorney general. And then I just have to wonder, like, do you know who your attorney general is? Do you know what their prosecution record is? Did you vote for your attorney general? Because sometimes like people skip over names because they don't know who they are. They don't know what they do. So helping people to understand that it's not just about voting for the president, and it's not just about, voting for someone locally that you understand, but it's understanding every person on the ballot and the role that they play. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing this, so that we can understand all of these positions and the roles that they play in our government, so that as we're going to cast our ballot, like we're being informed voters. Because for me, it's not just about voting for a party, but it's about voting for the people who represent our interests. And it just so happens that there's, a point of time that you get to where one party represents your interests more than another party. But I can be honest and say that at one time, I did vote for Republican candidates because I am what I consider a fiscal conservative, because I don't believe that the government is responsible for, taking care of, all of our social programs. I do believe that the government should ensure that we have a safety net. However, there was a time when one party was fiscally conservative and they were focused more on budgeting, but they don't have those values anymore. So we can't just vote for a party because you have an alliance to that party, but we have to look at who are the individuals representing that party that we're voting for. So when people, come and say, oh, you're just voting, Democrat because you've been brainwashed. And it's like, no, that's not the issue at all. Like, I vote Democrat because that is the party that aligns with my views. But as I'm educating people and talking to them about the voting process, I never try to sway them to vote for one party or another. And that's why I very rarely talk about the party affiliation, but I do share the candidates that I'm supporting, because I think that that's really important. There are some areas where you have the opportunity to make history in your area by voting for, maybe the first woman or the first African American. And that sounds great in theory, but my thing is always go to their website, go look at their policy positions, because I was at an event and there was a young Black guy who was running for a position against like an older white lady. And, everybody kind of assumed, because, based on those demographics, you would assume that the older white lady was, the Republican and the young Black guy was the Democrat. But in fact, the young Black guy was the Republican and the older white lady was the Democrat. And as they started to speak, like some of the things that were coming out of his mouth was just like, wow, like you actually believe that. So sometimes like the visual representatives that you get, when you see people's campaign materials, you might think, oh yeah, you might make assumptions. So don't make assumptions about candidates. Teach people, how do you go? And it's a quick Google search. Like we Google everything else. Google these candidates. Go to their website and see what their platform is. And if they don't have a website, if they don't have a platform, then you might not want to take a chance on your own voting for them. And for people, I know, so this is one of the questions that we get sometimes. People who say they are going to write in a name. That's not very helpful. And I think that, we really have to be honest with people and let them know that we are in a two-party process, a two-party platform. So yeah, you can write in a name, but however, when you look at the numbers, so this is a numbers game. When you look at the numbers, like you writing in a name is probably not going to have an impact numerically on the election. And so if you really want your vote to count, if you're really serious about, your vote, there are no perfect candidates. So this whole purity test that, we're trying to hold these candidates to, like, their issues don't match all of my issues. Well, there are no perfect candidates, and no candidate is going to represent your issues 100%. But you do want to ensure that of the candidates that you have to choose from, so this is what we're looking at. This is like multiple choice. This is not fill in the blank. Of the candidates that you have to choose from, which is the best candidate that supports your interests? And so we need to help people to understand that it's not about the perfect candidate. It's not about you writing in somebody's name, because honestly, like, that does nothing. But it's about A, B, or C. Which of those candidates best supports your interests? Chuck just says hold local candidate forums. That is such an easy thing to do right now because of technology. At one time, like, candidates were trying to like run all over the area. They were trying to be all over their district. But now you can hold virtual forums so that you can have like the candidates together on screen, moderated. I will say that whenever you hold a forum, you always want to make sure that you extend the invitation to all of the candidates for that position. So if you're going to hold a forum for your state representative of your area, make sure that you invite both sides of the ticket. You don't want to just invite the candidate that you're supporting or just the candidates from one ticket. You want to extend the invitation. Now, sometimes like the candidate that, is on the opposing party for whatever your position may be, they may not accept the invitation just because, whatever. But you always want to be able to say that you invited both sides so that you can have that fair and balanced conversation. But using platforms like Zoom, using platforms like, this Hop In is a great way for you to hold those local candidate forums so that you can hear directly from the candidates what their positions are, and you can ask questions. So don't do, gotcha questions. Don't try to, embarrass people. You might want to, put the questions together in advance and then send them to the candidates just so that they're prepared to speak intellectually on the subjects. And that might actually help you to get candidates from the other side to come and participate if they know the direction that your forum is going to go in. Because a lot of times, like, people are afraid that, you're going to try to embarrass them or whatever. That doesn't mean you can't ask the hard questions. Definitely ask the hard questions. Hold candidates accountable to their voting record, to, what they've said, but just make sure that it's fact-based and that you're not like off in left field. So that's brings me to another thought. If you're interested, so I hear a lot of people talking about, we got to hold candidates accountable. What does that look like? How do you hold candidates accountable? That is, once they have been elected, then you want to make sure that you are inviting them to have these forums. So the forums don't stop once you elect them. Throughout their tenure, you also want to invite them to come back and give a report. What legislation are you working on right now? How did you vote on that legislation? What can we do to support you? When my 100 Black Women chapter went to lobby our state representatives, and we asked one, what can we do to help you? Like, how can we help to have an impact? The thing that he said is, invite me in to talk to the people, because they want a space. And especially if your church, your organization has, large groups that are, going to participate, they want the opportunity to share with you what's going on, because there's so much misinformation out there. They want you to understand the legislation that they're voting on. They want you to understand, why they're voting for it or why they might not be voting for it. Because sometimes, again, going back to you seeing a headline or you seeing the title of a bill and you're just like, even with the Democrats, that are trying to support, getting additional stimulus dollars. And people are like, I don't understand why they won't just, support the bill, why they won't just vote for it. But if you actually listen to the dialogue that they're having, and they start telling you about some of the other things that are in the bill, and when people say they want a clean bill, that means that they want a bill that doesn't have pork in it. So pork is another term that you're going to hear. And that's stuff that they put in these bills to fatten them up because, they're trying to get, you may be voting to try to get money for schools, and then they're trying to put, an extra $1 million for, a whale museum in their district. So your party may not want to support that because they're like, we don't need to allocate $1 million for a whale museum in your district. But so that's called pork that people put in to try to fatten up bills. So make sure that you're talking to your Congress people, that you're talking to your local representatives, that you're even talking to your city council. Like, why are you not supporting this? Why are you not, why are you supporting this bill? Because on the outset, it may look like something that they shouldn't support, but getting an understanding of the issues is so important. Any other questions or comments?